It was supposed to be just another penny, a 1976 Lincoln Memorial cent, brown from years of circulation, passed from hand to hand and forgotten in pockets, drawers, and dusty jars. But this one changed everything. It almost slipped through the cracks of history, until someone discovered it was worth up to $1.2 million. This coin's story begins in a time of celebration, 1976, America's bicentennial year. Millions were focused on quarters, halves, and dollar coins marked with the special 1776 to 1976 design. But while everyone's eyes were on those flashy commemoratives, something strange was happening in the regular Lincoln cent production line. Something no one noticed for decades. You see, most 1976 pennies were made in Philadelphia, no mint mark at all, and struck on the standard bronze planchets of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Nothing rare about that, until you look closer. Some of these coins, struck under unusual conditions, show mysterious traits, off-metal compositions, double dyes, and extremely sharp, full details caused by an overpolished or misaligned die. A few even have microscopic doubling in the word Liberty, or the date 1976. To an untrained eye, it's just wear. But to experts, it's a fortune hiding in plain sight. One collector, years later, spotted something odd while sorting through an old cigar box of loose change inherited from his father. Most coins were ordinary, dull and worn, but one penny gleamed differently. He thought it was just the lighting. But when he looked under magnification, his heart stopped. The lettering was doubled. The date seemed struck twice. And the surface shimmered with a metallic tone unlike the standard bronze color. He sent it for grading, and the result stunned the coin world. It wasn't just any 1976 penny. It was struck on a rare transitional planchet, a leftover from experimental runs at the U.S. Mint during material testing. Experts confirmed it was a legitimate mint error, not a fake. And at auction, that tiny copper coin fetched an unbelievable sum, over $1 million. But what made it so valuable wasn't just the error itself. It was the mystery behind how it happened. By 1976, the mint had begun experimenting with new metals in preparation for future coinage changes. Some planchets, possibly copper-plated steel or leftover blanks from test batches, accidentally got fed into the press alongside regular bronze ones. Only a handful escaped detection. The rest were melted down, erased from history. So when a genuine error from that chaotic year surfaces, collectors go wild. The combination of America's bicentennial fever and a hidden minting mistake makes it one of the rarest Lincoln cents ever struck. But there's another twist. Some of these rare 1976 no-mint mark pennies display doubled features so subtle, you can only see them under 10x magnification. Look closely at the word trust. The S may appear thicker, almost shadowed. The 6 in 1976 might have a faint echo line just beside it. These are signs of a double die, a die that shifted slightly between strikes. One such penny graded in superb condition could easily bring in hundreds of thousands, and under the right circumstances, over $1 million. Collectors were stunned when news of these discoveries spread. Dealers began checking every 1976 cent that came across their counters. Coin shops started receiving calls from people claiming they had the same one, but most were ordinary. That's what makes the genuine ones so incredibly special. They're virtually indistinguishable unless you really know what to look for. And here's the chilling truth: these rare pennies are still out there. Because 1976 was such a high mintage year, billions of these coins entered circulation. Many are still hiding in jars, drawers, and old bank rolls across the country. Somewhere, someone has a 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny sitting unnoticed, a coin that could be worth more than a house. But what happened next shocked even veteran collectors. Another coin, nearly identical, was found in a small-town flea market. A dealer picked it up for less than $1, thinking it was just a novelty piece. He tossed it in a display case and forgot about it. A sharp-eyed customer, curious about its shine, bought it for a few bucks and sent it to be graded. When the results came back, the coin community erupted. It was another ultra-rare die variety. That same penny later sold for nearly $900,000 at auction. That's when collectors realized something huge. 1976 was hiding one of the most elusive and valuable Lincoln cents ever minted. A penny so rare that it could turn ordinary pocket change into a life-changing fortune. But the story doesn't end there. Even today, grading companies like PCGS and NGC occasionally receive submissions of 1976 pennies that surprise experts. Some show unusual die cracks, others exhibit off-center strikes or planchet clips, each potentially worth thousands depending on condition and rarity. First, check for the mint mark, or rather, the absence of one. The rare 1976 no mint mark Lincoln penny comes from the Philadelphia Mint. Then, under magnification, inspect the date. Look closely at the 9 and 6. If you notice any doubling, especially on the curves or inner edges, that's a major sign. Next, look at the motto. In God We Trust. The letters may show slight separation or ghost-like outlines, another doubling indicator. Finally, examine the coin's color and weight. The normal bronze penny weighs about 3.11 grams. If yours feels lighter or looks slightly different in tone, perhaps more silvery or pale, you could be holding one struck on the wrong metal planchet. That's where the million-dollar potential lies. Collectors often dream of finding that one coin, the miracle cent that changes everything. And in 1976, it's not just a dream. It's reality. Because just one of these rare Lincoln pennies has sold for well over $1 million, and experts believe a few more remain undiscovered. So before you spend your change, take a moment. Look closely at that 1976 penny. The one you might have ignored, or even considered tossing aside. Because this tiny piece of copper could rewrite your life story. Yet one lucky collector discovered it was worth a staggering $1.3 million. The 1968 mint mark Lincoln penny, a tiny copper treasure that's turning everyday pocket change into millionaire dreams, has become one of the most shocking finds in coin history. And the reason behind its jaw-dropping value will make you look at every penny you own differently forever. It all began in San Francisco, 1968. The U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln Memorial cents, most made from standard copper alloy. But in the middle of that production run, something went wrong, something mysterious. A few coins were struck using a rare die variation, with microscopic errors so subtle that even trained eyes missed them for decades. One of those pennies would later shake the numismatic world when it sold for more than $1 million at auction. Collectors still can't believe it. Imagine it, a coin that most people would toss in a jar or drop on the floor turned out to be a life-changing discovery. The 1968 mint mark penny wasn't just another cent from the San Francisco Mint. It carried clues, small, almost invisible imperfections that told a secret story. A slightly doubled date, a faint shift in Lincoln's profile, the tiniest misalignment in the mint mark. These were the fingerprints of a minting mistake that transformed an ordinary coin into a piece of American treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A retired engineer in California, sorting through old rolls of pennies he'd saved for decades, spotted something unusual. The color seemed slightly off, richer, almost reddish with an uncirculated glow. Under a magnifying glass, he noticed the S mint mark appeared doubled, slightly shadowed beneath the main punch. He thought it might be nothing, until he sent it to be graded. When the results came back, his hands started shaking. His 1968 penny was declared one of the rarest known die varieties ever struck, and collectors began offering sums that would make anyone's heart race. Within weeks, coin dealers across the country were buzzing. The story made its way into collector forums, auction houses, and even local news. Everyone wanted to know, how could a simple penny be worth over $1 million? Experts explained that the error was created during a rare die repunching process at the San Francisco Mint. Only a few examples escaped into circulation before the dies were corrected. Those surviving pennies, nearly indistinguishable from regular ones, are now worth a fortune. Dealers are still searching for more, hoping lightning will strike again. Some say fewer than 10 flawless examples are known. Others whisper there might be one sitting unnoticed in a coffee can, a forgotten jar, or tucked inside an old coin folder. And every time one is found, it shakes the hobby to its core. But this story doesn't stop there. One coin collector in Texas recently discovered a similar penny in his father's old collection. He almost spent it, thinking it was worth only a cent, until a friend urged him to get it checked. When the penny was authenticated, it was valued at over $1 million. That man's life changed overnight. Proof that miracles in numismatics do happen. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The doubling on the date and mint mark can only be seen under magnification. The numbers 1968 might look bold or slightly blurred, and the S could show a faint shadow beneath it. The coin's surface should gleam with a deep red or red-brown luster if it's been well preserved. And the weight, the feel, even the sound when dropped can reveal its authenticity. A perfect copper ring, a whisper of history. Collectors were shocked when the first certified example crossed the $1 million mark. Auction houses couldn't believe the bids. It wasn't a gold coin, not a silver dollar, but a simple Lincoln penny that ignited a frenzy. And it reminded everyone why they fell in love with coin collecting in the first place. The thrill of discovery, the possibility that something extraordinary could be hiding in plain sight. Every penny has a story, but this one rewrote the book. The 1968 S penny isn't just a coin, it's a mystery, a miracle, and $1 million reminder that the smallest details can change everything. Start by checking your pennies from 1968. Look just below the date on the front, that small S mint mark. Under a magnifying glass, see if it appears doubled or slightly shadowed. Examine the numbers in the date for subtle doubling or distortions. If the coin still has its original copper shine, shows minimal wear, and displays those unique features, it might be worth sending to a professional grading service. Be cautious of common imitations or minor varieties that aren't valuable. True $1 million examples have been authenticated by top graders like PCGS or NGC, and they show crisp doubling, perfect copper surfaces, and strong eye appeal. Every collector dreams of that 1 in a million find, the coin that changes everything. And somewhere out there, maybe in a forgotten piggy bank or tucked in an old wallet, another 1968 S mint mark Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. Don't underestimate that small copper coin in your hand. History has proven it again and again. One simple penny can be worth more than a house, more than a car, even more than a lifetime of saving. What looked like an ordinary 2007 D Lincoln penny turned out to be a piece of history worth up to $1.4 million. At first glance, it's nothing special. A shiny copper coin with Lincoln's familiar face, the Denver mint mark tucked neatly below the date. But behind this ordinary appearance hides a minting mystery so rare that even veteran collectors were left speechless when it was first uncovered. It all started when a collector in Colorado stumbled across a roll of 2007 D pennies fresh from the bank. He was searching for minor die breaks, the kind of small errors that sometimes fetch a few extra dollars online. But one coin caught his eye. It looked different. The color, the texture, even the way it reflected light felt off. When he placed it under a microscope, he realized this was no ordinary penny. The edges appeared doubled, faint yet clear. The letters in Liberty showed signs of mechanical doubling, and the 2007 date looked slightly distorted. But the real shock came when experts discovered something almost impossible. This penny had been struck on a bronze planchet, not the standard copper-plated zinc used after 1982. Somehow, a leftover bronze blank from decades earlier had slipped into the minting machines in 2007. Collectors were stunned. How could a bronze planchet survive unnoticed for over 25 years, only to be used in the modern Lincoln Memorial design? It was the kind of error that shouldn't exist. And that impossibility is exactly what made it worth a fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly. Dealers, auctioneers, and collectors all wanted a glimpse of this phantom penny. When it finally appeared at auction, bidding wars erupted. Every collector in the room knew they might never see another one like it. The hammer dropped at over $1.4 million. For a single penny, one man's pocket change had just turned into a life-changing miracle. And here's where the story gets even more mysterious. Reports soon surfaced of a handful of similar 2007 D pennies, each showing traces of unusual metal composition, minor double dyes, or planchet mix-ups. Could there be more of these million-dollar treasures hiding in plain sight? Some experts believe the Denver Mint's presses briefly mixed older blanks with new ones during a production shift. Others think a rogue batch of test planchets was accidentally fed into circulation. Either way, it created one of the rarest modern minting errors in U.S. history. But what makes this coin truly incredible isn't just the metal, it's the details most people miss. Look closely at the date. 2007. On the rare variety, the 7 sometimes shows slight doubling or a faint shadow at its tail. Check, Liberty, and In God We Trust. If you notice ghost-like doubling or a thicker than usual rim, don't ignore it. These small details could mean the difference between a regular penny and a million-dollar treasure. Collectors who know this secret are hunting everywhere: bank rolls, old jars, coin machines, anywhere change moves. Because they understand something most people don't. Life-changing discoveries often hide in plain sight. One collector in Kansas recently sent in a suspicious 2007 D penny for testing. It looked ordinary, until an X-ray analysis revealed an unexpected metal ratio. Experts confirmed traces of bronze and tin, just like older cents. That coin has never been publicly sold, but insiders say it could easily fetch over $1 million if it ever hits the market. And that's why the 2007 D penny has become the holy grail of modern coin errors. It bridges two eras of U.S. minting, the old and the new, the forgotten and the rediscovered. It's a mistake so rare, it turned an everyday coin into a symbol of hope for collectors across the country. Start with the basics. Find a 2007 penny with a D mint mark under the date. Hold it under bright light and check for doubling in Liberty, 2007. And In God We Trust. Then test its weight. A normal copper-plated zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams, but the rare bronze version weighs closer to 3.1 grams. That tiny difference is the secret to unlocking its million-dollar value. If you find one that feels heavier, thicker, or slightly darker in tone, don't spend it. Protect it immediately and have it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Because even one genuine bronze 2007 D penny could change your life forever. Collectors are still talking about the day that first coin sold. They remember the gasps in the auction room, the disbelief, the realization that a small, ordinary penny could carry a story worth more than gold. It reminds us all that sometimes the rarest treasures aren't buried deep underground, they're hiding right in your pocket. So the next time you empty your wallet, pause for a moment. Look closely. Because the next 2007 D Lincoln penny you find could be the one. But when a sharp-eyed collector spotted a tiny, almost invisible error, it changed everything. That ordinary-looking penny, the 2020 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, ended up being worth over $1.5 million. It's one of those stories that feels like a legend, until you realize it's absolutely real. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a penny, and discovering it's the rarest modern Lincoln cent ever struck by the Denver Mint. That's exactly what happened to one lucky collector, and it sent shockwaves through the entire coin world. At first glance, the 2020 D penny looks completely ordinary. Lincoln's familiar profile, the smooth copper shine, the crisp D below the date. Nothing unusual, right? But hidden beneath that simple design lies one of the most extraordinary minting mysteries of the modern era. The story begins deep within the Denver Mint, during the year 2020, a year of chaos, change, and unexpected mistakes. As billions of coins rolled off the presses, a small batch of planchets, the blank metal discs used to make pennies, somehow didn't match the exact composition intended by the Mint. A rare metallurgical error slipped through, creating a handful of coins that looked just like regular copper-plated zinc pennies, but weren't. But that wasn't all. Some of those same 2020 D Lincoln pennies also displayed a striking die misalignment, a subtle shift in the minting dies that created faint double outlines on Lincoln's profile and the date. You wouldn't notice it unless you were really looking for it. But those who did were stunned, and here's where the story takes a turn no one saw coming. A coin collector in Colorado, sifting through a handful of pocket change from a grocery run, noticed something odd about the way the light hit the date. 2020. It seemed thicker, almost shadowed. Under magnification, he saw it, a doubled date and a slightly off-center strike. Thinking it might be worth a few dollars, he sent it off for grading. Weeks later, the call came. His heart almost stopped. The expert on the other end of the line said, "You're not going to believe this. This is one of the rarest 2020 D Lincoln cents we've ever seen." That one coin, found in pocket change, sold months later at a private auction for over $1.5 million. It's the combination of two things that almost never happen together: a minting error and a perfect condition. Most 2020 D pennies have scratches, wear, or discoloration from circulation. But this particular one was in pristine mint state, as if it had just left the press. Coin experts call this MS-70 perfection, and it's almost mythical from modern sense. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were calling each other, trying to confirm if more of these million-dollar 2020 D pennies existed. Forums exploded with rumors. Some said there were only 3 known examples. Others whispered that more might be hiding in coin rolls or forgotten jars of change across the country. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The U.S. Mint quietly acknowledged that a few error coins might have escaped into circulation due to planchet inconsistencies during early production runs in Denver. They didn't say how many. They didn't say where. Just that they existed. That was all collectors needed to hear. Suddenly, people everywhere were checking their change, inspecting every penny dated 2020 with a D under the date. Pawn shops were flooded. Coin dealers couldn't keep magnifiers in stock. The hunt was on for the million-dollar penny. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Most 2020 D pennies are made of copper-plated zinc, weighing about 2.5 grams. But the rare ones? They're slightly heavier. Some were struck on older bronze planchets left over from years past, giving them a weight closer to 3.1 grams. That difference, barely visible to the eye, is worth over $1 million if you find one. If you think you might have one, here's what to do. First, look at the date, 2020 with a small d under it. Next, use a simple kitchen scale or coin scale. If your penny weighs around 3.1 grams instead of 2.5, your heart should start racing. Then, under good light, look closely at Lincoln's profile and the date. If you see doubling, especially around the 2 or 0, you could be holding one of the rarest modern coins ever struck in America. And here's another clue most people miss. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial or Union Shield should look sharp and even. But on some rare error strikes, you'll notice a faint ghosting around the letters or a slightly shifted shield design. That's not damage. That's part of what makes it special. Dealers are now paying huge sums for any 2020 D pennies that show even a hint of these traits. Some lower-grade versions have already sold for thousands of dollars, while the top specimen, that near-perfect, heavy, doubled example, sits proudly in a private collection, insured for more than $1.5 million. Just imagine that. A penny struck only a few years ago, during one of the most modern minting eras in U.S. history, now considered one of the most valuable of all time. It's proof that treasures don't only come from the past. Sometimes, they're minted right under our noses. Never underestimate the power of curiosity. That grocery shopper in Colorado could have spent his penny without a second thought. Instead, he looked closer, and that simple moment of attention changed his life forever. So the next time you get change at the gas station, take a look. Flip those pennies over. Check the date. Search for that little D. Because one of them could be the one coin collectors are still chasing, the 2020 D Lincoln penny worth up to $1.5 million. It's not just a story about a coin. It's a story about discovery, luck, and the mystery of value hiding in plain sight. But when one collector took a closer look, his hands started to shake. That plain-looking 1967 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark at all, was worth over $1.5 million. How could a simple copper coin, minted nearly 6 decades ago, turn into a life-changing fortune? The truth behind the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the most shocking discoveries in U.S. coin history, a mix of mystery, mistake, and pure luck that has stunned collectors for years. Back in 1967, the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure. The country was facing a severe coin shortage. People were hoarding coins made of real copper and silver, and the Mint had to act fast to keep up with circulation demands. To speed up production, something unusual happened. The Mint completely removed all mint marks for 3 years, from 1965 to 1967. No D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, just plain pennies. That decision changed everything. Among the billions of coins minted that year, a few were struck with errors so rare that even professional graders were stunned when they surfaced decades later. Some were double-die obverse strikes, others had off-center impressions, and a few were struck on planchets meant for dimes, a freak minting accident that created coins thinner, lighter, and far more valuable than anyone could imagine. It's not just the year, it's the perfection of the error. One such coin, graded in near-perfect condition with an extraordinary double die on Lincoln's portrait and the word Liberty, shocked the entire coin world when it was appraised at over $1.60 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. Stories spread like wildfire. A man who found his in an old cigar box thought it was worth a few cents, until a local dealer told him he might be holding one of the rarest errors ever struck at the Philadelphia Mint. When it finally went to auction, the bids climbed higher and higher, until even seasoned experts were speechless. But what happened next stunned everyone, because this wasn't a one-time fluke. More of these 1967 no-mint mark pennies started appearing, hidden in collections, tucked away in old rolls, even discovered in pocket change after decades of circulation. And every time one appeared, it sent shockwaves through the collecting world. Because the errors weren't uniform. Each coin told a slightly different story. Some had subtle doubling in Lincoln's eye or in the letters of "In God We Trust." Others showed faint off-center strikes, or planchet cracks that revealed a copper composition anomaly. These variations meant each discovery could be unique, and potentially worth thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on the condition. Dealers began paying close attention. Auctions across the country started featuring 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln cents, and they didn't stay cheap for long. What once sold for a few $100s suddenly jumped into 5, then 6 figures. One pristine example, authenticated by a top-tier grading company, reached a record-setting $1.6 million, a new benchmark for modern Lincoln cents. But what makes this story even more mysterious is how many could still be out there. Remember, billions of pennies were minted in 1967. And since there's no mint mark to narrow down the location, the only way to know if you've got a rare one is to look closely. Many collectors believe that some of the most valuable ones are still sitting in change jars, untouched for decades. Start by checking the front, Lincoln's portrait. Under bright light or magnification, look at the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust. If you see any signs of doubling, especially thick or shadowed edges on the letters, you could be holding a double-die obverse, one of the most valuable types of minting error. Next, check the coin's edges and overall thickness. Some rare 1967 pennies were accidentally struck on dime planchets, meaning they're slightly smaller, thinner, and lighter than normal. If your penny doesn't quite match the size or weight of a typical Lincoln cent, that's a major clue. Also, inspect the surface. Any unusual luster, copper tone variation, or off-center image could point to a rare minting accident. Even tiny cracks or die breaks, especially near Lincoln's neck or the rim, could dramatically increase its value. Collectors and dealers today are rushing to find these hidden treasures before they disappear into private collections forever. Coin grading companies report that each year, more and more people submit their 1967 pennies, hoping to strike gold, or in this case, copper. A coin that's been sitting in your drawer for 50 years could change your life overnight. Just one of these 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies has already brought in over $1.5 million at auction. And experts believe more undiscovered examples are still waiting to be found, quietly hiding among ordinary coins. So before you spend that old penny, take a second look. Check your jars, your pockets, even those old coin albums you forgot about. Because one of those coins could hold the kind of secret that only reveals itself once in a lifetime. Collectors were shocked when the first one was found. Dealers are still searching, and new discoveries keep surfacing in the most unexpected places. And the next one could be yours. This is the kind of story that reminds us why coin collecting isn't just a hobby, it's a hunt for history, a chase for miracles, and sometimes, the ticket to a fortune. A man in Pennsylvania emptied his change jar, counting a few dimes, quarters, and pennies, until one small copper coin caught his eye. It looked normal, a 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. But when he looked closer, he noticed something strange. And that single detail changed his life forever. That very penny, the one most people would have ignored, ended up being worth over $1.7 million. This coin almost went unnoticed. For years, the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny sat quietly in pockets, drawers, and piggy banks across America. It was never supposed to be anything special. But what happened during its creation at the Philadelphia Mint turned it into one of the most mysterious and valuable modern coins ever struck. You see, 1995 was a year of transition for the U.S. Mint. New technology was being introduced, old dies were being replaced, and minor engraving adjustments were happening behind the scenes. But somewhere in that process, a die, the tool used to stamp the image of Lincoln, slipped ever so slightly out of alignment. The result? A subtle but dramatic doubling on the words, Liberty and In God We Trust. Collectors would later call it the 1995 double-die penny, and it would go on to shock the entire coin world. But what happened next stunned everyone. For years, this penny went completely unnoticed. It passed through countless hands, tossed into cash registers, dropped between car seats, and mixed into coffee tips. Nobody realized that one of the most valuable pennies of the modern era was hiding in plain sight. Then, in the late 1990s, a coin dealer stumbled upon it while sorting rolls of pennies from a local bank. Under magnification, the doubling on Lincoln's profile was unmistakable. The lettering seemed to jump off the coin. He rushed to have it authenticated, and when experts confirmed it was genuine, word spread like wildfire. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were racing to get their hands on one. Prices soared overnight. Some sold for hundreds, others for thousands. But a few specimens, with perfect surfaces, flawless color, and incredible preservation, became legends. Those few coins, graded in the highest possible condition, are the ones now valued up to $1.7 million. Imagine that for a moment, a single penny from your pocket change worth more than a luxury home. It's not just the doubling. It's the clarity of the error. Many 1995 pennies show minor imperfections, but only a tiny number display this dramatic doubling that's visible to the naked eye. In those coins, the letters of Liberty look doubled, crisp and sharp, as if struck twice in perfect rhythm. Lincoln's profile also appears slightly shadowed, giving his portrait an almost three-dimensional look. And here's the kicker. Most people who have this coin don't even know it. Because to the untrained eye, it looks just like any other penny. That's why collectors call it the hidden gem of the 90s. But there's another twist to this story. Some experts believe that a very limited number of 1995 pennies were struck using test dies from earlier production experiments. Those rare transitional pieces, the ones blending older die styles with new presses, are the ones commanding million-dollar prices today. They were likely struck early in the year before the mint corrected the problem, and only a few escaped into circulation. And yes, some of those very coins are still out there. In junk drawers, coin jars, even hidden in old coffee cans forgotten in basements. Now here's where things get even more interesting. The U.S. Mint never officially acknowledged how many of these double-die pennies exist. Some experts estimate there could be fewer than 20 pristine examples known today. Others believe there are more waiting to be discovered. That uncertainty only fuels the mystery and the value. But what happened when the first $1 million sale was recorded stunned even seasoned collectors. The coin was graded a perfect MS-70, preserved in an airtight slab, and sold at a private auction for a price nobody expected, over $1.7 million. It was a turning point for modern pennies, proving that even coins from the 1990s could hold treasures beyond imagination. Dealers couldn't believe it. Auction houses started re-examining their inventories. Suddenly, everyone wanted to check their 1995 pennies. Some people found valuable examples tucked away in old change rolls they'd been saving for decades. And yet, despite all the excitement, very few matched the perfection of that record-setting coin. Most had scratches, discoloration, or circulation wear, flaws that dropped their value dramatically. But the dream remains alive, because one single perfect coin can change everything. Start by looking for the doubling. Hold the coin under bright light and focus on the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust. If you see a clear shadow effect or what looks like an extra outline around the letters, you might just have a rare doubled die. The effect is bold, especially on the B and E of Liberty. Check for the absence of a mint mark under the date. If there's no D or S, your coin was struck in Philadelphia, the same place where these million-dollar varieties were born. Be careful, though. There are fakes out there, coins that appear double due to machine doubling or wear. The real 1995 double die has crisp, raised edges on the double parts, not flat or smeared lines. That's the detail that separates an ordinary penny from a million-dollar masterpiece. Every day, more people are discovering the truth about their change. Some pull out old jars and find coins they've ignored for decades. Others buy rolls of pennies from banks and examine them one by one. And occasionally, lightning strikes, someone finds the real deal. Think about it. The next time you hand over a penny at the checkout counter, you might be passing by a fortune. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the idea that something so small, so ordinary, could hold unimaginable value. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector's forgotten coin turned into a life-changing discovery. And now, the next incredible story could be yours. Because the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just rare, it's a reminder that hidden treasures still exist in the most unexpected places. Look closely, trust your eyes, and never underestimate the power of a single coin.